Vanessa forced herself toward the woman in burgundy, her heels sinking into the manicured lawn like her crumbling confidence, the crowd parting like waves before a storm. "Debbie, you actually came," she stammered, her condescending smile fracturing as champagne sloshed from her trembling glass. Debbie met her gaze with scalpel-sharp calm, the air electric with unspoken fury. "You invited me, Vanessa. Would have been rude not to show up. Before we get into the story, do me a quick favor. Subscribe to the channel, share this with someone, and let me know in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is over there. Now, let's get into the story." The alarm screamed at 4:30 a.m., pulling Debbie from the only peace she knew, sleep. She reached over in the darkness, silencing it with fingers that ached even before the day began. No time for coffee, no time for anything except the first bus that left at 5:15. Miss it, and the whole carefully constructed chain of connections would collapse. 3 buses, that's what it took to get from her studio apartment in the forgotten part of town to Morales Corporate Tower. First bus to downtown, second bus across the river, third bus into the financial district, where money lived and breathed and multiplied, while people like her made sure the glass stayed spotless. By 6:30 a.m., Debbie stood at the service entrance of the tower, her uniform already on, her cleaning cart loaded. Morales Corporate Tower wasn't just a building, it was a cathedral to wealth. 70 stories of steel and glass and Italian marble that probably cost more per square foot than most people earned in a year. Everything about it whispered money, power, importance. And Debbie, she was the shadow that kept it pristine. She moved through the executive floor like a ghost, vacuum humming, cloth wiping, trash emptying, always before 8 a.m., before the real people arrived. That was the unspoken rule: be invisible. Do your work when no one's watching. Disappear before they have to acknowledge you exist. But invisible people see everything. Debbie had learned that years ago. She heard the executives on their phones, discussing mergers worth millions, affairs worth divorces, insider information worth prison time. She saw the forgotten documents on desks, the empty bottles hidden in drawers, the photos turned face down when certain visitors came by. She knew more secrets about this company than the board of directors. "I used to save lives," she thought, watching the sunrise paint the glass walls gold. "Now I clean up after people who've never saved anything but money." The elevator dinged at 8:47. Vanessa Morales stepped out, her heels clicking like a countdown. Designer bag, designer dress, designer smile that never reached her eyes. She spotted Debbie near the conference room, and her face shifted. Not quite a frown, but something colder. "Debbie, this floor." Vanessa gestured vaguely with manicured nails. "I can still see streaks. Do it again." Debbie looked at the floor. It was flawless. She'd cleaned it twice already. "Yes, Mrs. Morales." Vanessa's friends emerged from the elevator behind her, all cut from the same expensive cloth. Their laughter carried sharp edges. "God, can you imagine?" one of them said, not even lowering her voice. "Living like that? Taking 3 buses just to scrub toilets?" "Some lives are just so sad," Vanessa agreed, loud enough for Debbie to hear every word. "Thank God we'll never know what that's like." They swept past like Debbie was furniture, like she was part of the building itself, necessary but unworthy of acknowledgement. Jason Morales arrived at 9:15, phone pressed to his ear, briefcase in hand, his attention somewhere in the stratosphere of business deals and stock prices. He walked right past Debbie without a flicker of recognition. She'd been cleaning his office for 2 years. He'd never once looked at her face. Later, as Debbie emptied trash bins in the executive lounge, she caught her reflection in the floor-to-ceiling window. For a moment, she didn't recognize the woman staring back. Tired eyes, stooped shoulders, hands red and raw from chemicals. When did I become this? She wondered. When did I disappear? But she already knew the answer. She'd chosen invisibility. It was safer than being seen, safer than being destroyed again. Vanessa's laughter echoed from down the hall, sharp and cutting. Debbie picked up her cart and kept moving. Head down, back bent, small, invisible. Pause. 2 seconds. The break room was empty when Debbie sat down with her lunch, leftover rice and beans in a plastic container, reheated in the microwave that never quite heated things evenly. She had 30 minutes. 30 minutes to sit, to eat, to pretend she was just another person taking a break from work. The door burst open with the force of an entrance, not just someone walking in. Vanessa swept through like she was taking a stage, her friends trailing behind her like an entourage. Kennedy in head-to-toe Chanel, Isabel with her signature Hermès bag, Tiffany with jewelry that caught every light in the room. "Debbie!" Vanessa's voice was theater loud, designed to fill space and demand attention. "Oh my God, I've been looking everywhere for you." Debbie looked up slowly, fork halfway to her mouth. Her stomach tightened. Nothing good ever came from Vanessa seeking her out. Vanessa glided closer, her friends forming a semicircle behind her. In her perfectly manicured hand, she held a cream-colored envelope with gold embossing that caught the fluorescent lights. It looked expensive. Everything about Vanessa looked expensive. "I have something for you," Vanessa said, her smile wide and bright and utterly hollow. She extended the envelope like she was presenting a trophy. Debbie set down her fork and wiped her hands on a napkin before taking it. Her fingers, calloused, rough, marked by years of hard work, looked almost obscene against the pristine paper. The contrast wasn't lost on anyone in the room. "Jason and I are celebrating our 5th anniversary," Vanessa announced, as if addressing a crowd rather than one cleaning lady. "At the Venetian estate. Can you believe it's been 5 years? And you're invited." Behind her, Kennedy and Isabel exchanged glances. Tiffany bit her lip, fighting a smile. Debbie looked at the envelope, then at Vanessa. Something cold settled in her chest. This wasn't kindness. This was something else entirely. "It's black tie optional, darling," Vanessa added, her voice dripping with false warmth. "So you can wear whatever you're comfortable in. Black tie optional." At the Venetian estate, where the valet parking alone probably cost more than Debbie's monthly rent. "Don't worry about bringing a gift," Vanessa continued, waving her hand dismissively. "Your presence is more than enough. We're inviting all our favorite people, and it just wouldn't be the same without you there." She leaned in slightly, her perfume overwhelming. "It'll be so fun to see you all dressed up." Kennedy made a sound, half cough, half laugh, and quickly covered her mouth. Debbie held the envelope. She could feel the weight of what it really was. Not an invitation, a trap, a setup, a joke with her as the punchline. But what could she say? What could she do? "Thank you, Mrs. Morales," she said quietly, her voice steady despite the humiliation burning through her. Vanessa blinked, clearly surprised by the calm acceptance. She'd been expecting something, embarrassment maybe, or stammering gratitude, not this quiet dignity. "Well," Vanessa recovered quickly, her smile stretching wider. "We're so glad you can make it. Saturday at 7. See you there." She turned in a swirl of perfume and silk, her friends following. The door swung shut behind them, and immediately Debbie heard it, the explosion of laughter in the hallway. "Can you imagine?" Tiffany's voice, not even trying to be quiet. "She'll probably show up in her cleaning uniform," Kennedy barely containing her giggles. "Or worse, whatever passes for formal wear at Goodwill," Isabel added, and their laughter grew louder as they walked away. Debbie sat alone with the envelope in her hands and her lunch growing cold. She didn't open it. She didn't need to. She knew exactly what this was. Pause. Mouse 1 second. Later, in Vanessa's corner office with its view of the city, the three friends sprawled across the leather furniture like they owned the place, which, in a way, Vanessa did. "God, this is going to be perfect," Vanessa said, refilling their champagne glasses from the bottle she kept in her mini fridge. "We've been planning this for weeks." "The photographer will be ready?" Kennedy asked. "Oh, absolutely. I told him to make sure he captures all the guests. All of them." Vanessa's smile was sharp. "We're seating her at the service staff table, obviously, with the caterers." "It's going to be the highlight of the night," Isabel agreed, raising her glass. The office door opened. Jason walked in, phone in one hand, his attention already elsewhere. "Who are you talking about?" he asked absently, not really listening. "Just finalizing the guest list, darling," Vanessa said smoothly. Jason nodded, already moving toward his inner office. "Just make sure everyone important is there." Vanessa watched him go, then turned back to her friends. Her smile was ice and venom. "Oh, don't worry," she said softly. "Everyone who needs to be there will be there." Pause. 2 seconds. The first bus came at 5:47 p.m., packed with other exhausted bodies heading away from the wealth they served. Debbie found a seat near the back and clutched the cream envelope in her lap like evidence of a crime. Through the window, she watched the city transform. Glass towers gave way to older buildings. Luxury cars disappeared, replaced by buses and beat-up sedans. Even the air seemed to change, thinner somehow, less polished. Second bus, third bus, each one taking her further from Vanessa's world and deeper into her own. By the time Debbie reached her block, the sun was setting behind buildings that had seen better decades. Her apartment building hunched between a laundromat and a corner store with bars on the windows, cracked sidewalks, graffiti that got painted over and reappeared like a conversation. The front door lock was broken again, had been for 2 weeks. Inside, the hallway lights flickered like dying fireflies. Third floor, no elevator, never an elevator. Her keys jingled as she unlocked 3 separate locks on her door. The apartment was exactly as she'd left it that morning. One room containing everything. Bed pushed against the wall, kitchenette with 2 burners, bathroom she could touch both walls of simultaneously. Single window overlooking an alley where pigeons fought over scraps. 400 square feet of existence. But it was clean. God, it was clean. Debbie kept it immaculate the way some people keep themselves sane. Obsessively, desperately. Because if she couldn't control anything else, at least she could control this. She set the invitation on her small table. The cream paper and gold embossing looked obscene here, like a diamond ring in a dumpster. She pulled out the single chair and sat, staring at it. Then the anger came. She stood abruptly, pacing the narrow space between bed and kitchenette. Her hands shook. 5 steps one way, 5 steps back. How dare they? How dare she? Treating her like entertainment, like a circus animal performing tricks for their amusement. But the anger burned itself out quickly, leaving only humiliation in its wake. Debbie sank onto the bed, head in her hands. Her breath came in short, sharp gasps. She could see it so clearly, walking into that estate in whatever cheap dress she could afford, cameras flashing, Vanessa's friends whispering, laughing, pointing. The cleaning lady who thought she belonged. And then the tears came. Not gentle tears, not quiet tears. These were the tears she'd been holding back for 5 years, for everything she'd lost, everyone she'd failed, every piece of herself she'd buried to survive. She cried for her husband's funeral, for the last time she'd held her daughter, for the courtroom where they took Amara away, for the medical license gathering dust in a box, for the woman named Dr. Deborah Richardson who used to exist. She cried for the invisibility she'd accepted, for the smallness she'd chosen, for looking down instead of forward, for letting people like Vanessa treat her like she was nothing. "They think I'm nothing," she whispered into the empty room. Her voice cracked. Maybe they're right. The thought settled like poison. Who was she now? Just a cleaning lady who used to be someone. A ghost haunting her own life. If I go, I'm the joke. If I don't go, I'm still the joke. The apartment pressed in around her. 400 square feet of surrender. Then, cutting through the spiral, a memory surfaced, clear and sharp as broken glass. She was 8 years old, standing in their small kitchen, her mother at the stove, hair wrapped, humming something low and beautiful. Young Deborah had come home crying because a girl at school said her clothes were shabby, her shoes were cheap. Her mother had knelt down, eye level, hands warm on her shoulders. "Baby girl, remember this. Dignity isn't in what you wear or what you own. It's in how you carry yourself, in knowing your worth even when others don't see it." "But Mama, what if I forget my worth?" Her mother had smiled, fierce and tender all at once. "Then you look in the mirror and remind yourself who raised you." Debbie opened her eyes. The memory faded, but its warmth remained. She stood slowly and walked to the bathroom. The mirror was small, the glass slightly warped. She looked at her reflection, tired eyes, work-worn face, lines that hadn't been there 5 years ago. But something else too. Something underneath. Still there. Still breathing. "Who raised me?" she whispered. Her mother had raised her. A woman who cleaned houses but carried herself like royalty. Who had nothing but gave everything, who taught her daughter that worth wasn't given by others. It lived inside you, waiting to be remembered. Debbie's jaw tightened, her spine straightened. "Maybe," she said to her reflection, her voice stronger now, "it's time to stop hiding." The invitation sat on the table behind her, gold letters catching the last of the daylight. For the first time since receiving it, Debbie smiled. Pause is 2 seconds. Debbie knelt beside her bed, her knees pressing into the worn carpet. She reached underneath, past the dust bunnies and forgotten things, until her fingers found the edge of the box. Cardboard, taped shut, pushed as far back as it would go. She pulled it out slowly, like extracting a splinter. Dust covered the top in a thick gray layer. 5 years of dust. 5 years of not looking back. Her hands hovered over the tape. Once she opened this, she couldn't unknow what was inside, couldn't return to the careful forgetting she'd cultivated. She tore the tape. The first thing she saw was her diploma, Johns Hopkins School of Medicine. Embossed letters spelling out a name that felt like it belonged to someone else now. Deborah Ann Richardson, Doctor of Medicine. Beside it, her residency certificates. Board certifications in cardiovascular surgery. Each one a year of her life, a piece of who she'd worked to become. Photographs slipped from between the papers. Young Deborah in a white coat, stethoscope draped around her neck, standing in front of Metropolitan General. Her smile was confident, certain, the smile of someone who believed the world made sense, that hard work mattered, that goodness won. She barely recognized that woman. Deeper in the box, newspaper clippings carefully preserved in plastic sleeves. Dr. Deborah Richardson opens free clinic in Riverside. She remembered that day, the ribbon cutting, the cameras, the families who'd lined up for treatment they couldn't afford elsewhere. A magazine feature, 40 under 40, healthcare innovators. Her photograph professional, polished, powerful, more photos. Deborah at charity galas in elegant gowns, receiving awards, speaking at medical conferences. The Richardson Medical Initiative brochure with her mission statement in bold letters. Healthcare is a right, not a privilege. Thank you letters from patients, some in shaky handwriting, some with children's drawings in the margins. That was me, she thought, touching the images like they might dissolve. I did that. I was that. The next layer made her breath catch, her wedding photo. Deborah and David Richardson, both young and glowing, with the particular brightness of people who believe they're invincible. David in his suit, her in simple white, their hands clasped between them. David, brilliant civil rights attorney, fighter for the underserved, the man who believed in justice like some people believe in God. Dead 5 years now. More photos tumbled out. Amara as a newborn, impossibly tiny in Deborah's arms. Amara taking her first steps. Birthday parties with homemade cakes. Christmas mornings with wrapping paper everywhere. Family vacations to places they had saved for months to afford. The last photo stopped her heart. Amara at 7 years old, gap-toothed smile, holding up a drawing she'd made at school. My mommy saves lives, written in crayon across the top. She'd be 12 now, 12 years old, and Deborah hadn't seen her in 5 years. Her hands shook as she reached the final layer. Newspaper headline, large and damning. Surgeon accused in patient death during emergency procedure. She remembered that night in crystalline detail. The emergency call, the patient coding on the table, 6 hours of surgery, fighting for a life that was already slipping away. She'd done everything right, every protocol, every procedure, every desperate attempt. The patient died anyway. The family needed someone to blame. The hospital needed to protect itself. Deborah became convenient for both. Legal documents, the malpractice lawsuit, depositions, court dates, more headlines. Doctor's negligence claims another victim. The media frenzy. Her face on the news. Colleagues who stopped returning calls, friends who disappeared, and then David's accident. Driving home from a late court case, hit by a drunk driver. Dead before the ambulance arrived. Everything collapsed at once. Legal fees drained their savings. Grief swallowed her whole. She couldn't work, couldn't function, couldn't be the mother Amara needed. Social services stepped in. Temporary custody became permanent. A small headline, buried on page 12 2 years later. Dr. Richardson exonerated. Investigation shows no wrongdoing. But by then, it was too late. No job, no money, no family, no home. Dr. Deborah Richardson died. Debbie, the cleaning lady, was born. At the bottom of the box, her medical license. She lifted it carefully, running her thumb over her name. Suspended, not revoked. It could be reinstated. She'd received letters from the medical board saying as much. She'd never responded, never tried. Easier to stay dead than risk being killed again. Debbie looked at the artifacts of her former life spread across her floor. Not lost, not taken, given away. I didn't lose everything, she whispered. I gave it away. I let them win. She picked up Amara's photo, tracing her daughter's smile. I stopped fighting. I stopped being your mother. Her wedding photo. Two people who thought love and work and goodness were enough. I stopped being me. The invitation to Vanessa's gala sat on the table, mocking her with its gold letters and cream paper. Debbie stood, medical license still in her hand. Not anymore, she said to the empty room. Not anymore. Pause, 2 seconds. At the very bottom of the box, beneath the medical license and the grief, Debbie found a business card. The edges were worn, the paper soft from age. Dr. Simone Baptiste, it read, but someone had crossed out the hospital name and written in pen, Baptiste Fashion House, with a phone number below. Debbie turned the card over. On the back, in Simone's distinctive handwriting, "When you're ready, I'll be here." The memory hit like a wave. Resident lounge, 2 a.m., both of them in wrinkled scrubs after 36-hour shifts. Simone sketching in a notebook, while Debbie reviewed charts. Not medical diagrams, dresses, elaborate gowns with impossible draping, evening wear that belonged on runways, not in a hospital break room. "You should do it," Debbie had said, looking over Simone's shoulder. "Leave medicine. Follow your passion." Simone had laughed, tired and uncertain. "What about you?" "What's your passion?" "Saving lives. That's all I've ever wanted." They'd been inseparable during residency, two black women in a program that seemed designed to break them, holding each other up through the impossible hours, the casual racism, the attending physicians who expected them to fail. Simone had been brilliant, one of the best surgical residents in their class. But her heart was never in the scalpel. It was in the sketch. After Debbie's fall, Simone had tried to reach out. Calls, texts, emails. Debbie had ignored them all, then changed her number. Disappeared so completely even her past couldn't find her. Now, 5 years later, Debbie sat on her apartment floor, holding Simone's card. Hours passed. The sun set. The card stayed in her hand. Finally, as the city lights flickered on outside her window, Debbie picked up her phone. Her finger hovered over the numbers. What would she even say? How do you apologize for vanishing? For cutting off the people who loved you because facing their concern was worse than facing nothing? She dialed before she could stop herself. Once, twice, 3 times. "Hello?" Professional, crisp. Simone's voice, but filtered through success and distance. Debbie's throat closed. She couldn't speak. "Hello?" Simone repeated. "If this is a spam call..." "Simone..." The name came out broken. It's Deborah." Silence. Long, stretching silence that felt like falling. Then, "Deb?" Voice cracking. "Oh my God. Deb, is that really you?" The tears came again, but different this time. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry I disappeared. I couldn't face anyone. Couldn't let anyone see me like this." "Like what? Where are you?" "Tell me where you are right now." "I need help, Sim." Debbie's voice was barely a whisper. "I need to remember who I am." "Send me your address." No hesitation, no questions. "I'm coming, tonight." 2 hours later, Debbie heard the unfamiliar sound of an expensive engine outside her building. She looked out the window and saw the black SUV, gleaming and out of place among the beat-up sedans and broken streetlights. Simone stepped out, wearing a tailored coat and heels that clicked with purpose. But when she looked up and saw Debbie in the window, her face transformed, all the professional polish falling away to reveal the friend underneath. They met at the building's entrance. For a moment, they just looked at each other, Simone, elegant and successful, Debbie, worn and exhausted. Then they crashed together in an embrace that felt like finding oxygen after drowning. Inside the apartment, Simone's eyes swept the space. One room, one window, a life compressed into 400 square feet. Her face showed pain, but not pity. Never pity. Deb, why didn't you call me sooner? I was ashamed. Debbie's voice was raw. I'd lost everything. I didn't want you to see me like this. Like what? Human? Going through hell? Simone grabbed her shoulders. You think I would have cared about any of this? I cared about you. They sat on the bed, the only place to sit, and Debbie told her everything. The lawsuit, David's death, losing Amara, the descent from Dr. Richardson to Debbie, the cleaning lady. Simone listened without interrupting, holding Debbie's hand, crying with her. Then Debbie showed her the invitation. Simone read it slowly, her expression hardening with each word. She invited you to humiliate you. Yes. And you're going to go? Debbie met her eyes. I think I have to. Simone was quiet for a long moment, then slowly she smiled. Then let's make sure they never forget it. She pulled out her tablet, fingers already moving across the screen. When you walk in, what do you want them to see? Debbie thought about it, really thought about it. Not a victim, not a joke, just me, the real me. Dr. Deborah Richardson, surgeon, humanitarian, survivor. A woman who refuses to stay buried. Simone's hands flew across the tablet, sketching with the same precision she'd once used for surgery. I see burgundy, rich, powerful, regal, not trying too hard, natural elegance that doesn't apologize. They worked through the night. Fabric swatches appeared from Simone's bag. She showed Debbie jewelry from her personal collection, pieces she'd designed herself. They discussed hair, makeup, the exact shade of lipstick that said confidence without arrogance. But more than the clothes, Simone was rebuilding something more fragile, Debbie's belief that she deserved to take up space. You're not dressing up as someone else, Simone said, as dawn began to lighten the window. You're remembering who you've always been. We have 3 days, Simone continued. I'll handle everything. You just need to do one thing. What? Remember that you're royalty, not because of what you wear, because of what you've survived. Debbie's eyes filled with tears. Thank you. Simone squeezed her hand. Thank me by never disappearing again. Deal? Deal. Pause. 2 seconds. The morning arrived with the kind of crystalline perfection that only money could buy. At the Venetian estate, an army of staff moved like synchronized dancers across the sprawling grounds. Florists positioned arrangements of white roses and gold-dusted lilies. Caterers set up stations under silk tents. Decorators hung crystal chandeliers from trees that had probably been growing since before anyone present was born. Everything was white and gold, purity and wealth, the twin gods of high society. Ice sculptures caught the morning light, refracting it into tiny rainbows. A string quartet rehearsed near the fountain, their music drifting across manicured lawns that looked painted rather than grown. Staff constructed champagne towers with mathematical precision, each glass placed with the reverence usually reserved for religious artifacts. This wasn't just a party, this was a temple to excess. Inside the mansion, Vanessa had claimed an entire suite of rooms for her preparation. Hairstylist to her left, makeup artist to her right, manicurist at her feet like attendant serving a queen. She tried on different jewelry sets, holding them up to the light, discarding pieces that cost more than most people's cars because they weren't quite perfect. Her dress hung on a silk-padded hanger, $50,000 of custom Vera Wang for a vow renewal that would last 10 minutes. Everything about the day was controlled, curated, designed to project an image of perfection that had nothing to do with love and everything to do with status. Kennedy, Isabel, and Tiffany arrived at noon with mimosas and gossip, settling into the plush furniture like they owned it. "Do you really think she'll come?" Kennedy asked, sipping champagne that cost more per bottle than Debbie made in a week. Vanessa smiled at her reflection, watching the makeup artist apply the final touches. "God, I hope so. Can you imagine?" They laughed, that particular kind of laughter that has cruelty woven through it like gold thread through expensive fabric. Vanessa caught her photographer's eye as he checked his equipment. "Make sure you get shots of all the guests. All of them." The emphasis was deliberate, the look knowing. It's going to be unforgettable. Across the estate, in his wood-paneled study, Jason Morales reviewed note cards for his speech. He should have been excited. 5 years of marriage, a celebration that would be talked about for months. But the words felt hollow in his mouth. Their marriage had become performance art. He'd married her for her beauty, the way she looked on his arm at corporate events. She'd married him for his money, for the life it could buy. Both got exactly what they wanted. Neither got what they needed. His assistant stood in the doorway, tablet in hand. 350 guests confirmed, sir. Anyone important we should know about? The usual, board members, investors, society people. Jason nodded, distracted. Good. Whatever Vanessa wants. After his assistant left, Jason looked at their wedding photo on his desk. 5 years ago, before things calcified into routine. He almost remembered feeling something real. He shook it off. It's just one night. Meanwhile, in a studio apartment across the city, Simone arrived at 2 o'clock with a team and enough equipment to transform a prison cell into a palace. Debbie's tiny space became a styling suite. Makeup cases opened like treasure chests, hair tools plugged into every available outlet, and hanging from the bathroom door, protected by a garment bag that whispered with quality, was the dress. Simone unzipped it slowly, revealing burgundy silk velvet that seemed to absorb and reflect light simultaneously. Off-shoulder, elegant train, gold threading, catching every ray of afternoon sun through the window. Simple but breathtaking, the kind of dress that didn't shout for attention because it knew attention would come. Debbie reached out, touching the fabric with fingers that had scrubbed floors that morning. Simone, this is you, trust me. The transformation took hours. Simone's team worked with quiet professionalism, but Simone herself never stopped coaching. Head up. Hair, natural curls styled into an elegant updo that looked effortless but had taken 90 minutes to perfect. Shoulders back. Makeup, highlighting Debbie's features, her high cheekbones, her deep-set eyes, not hiding them behind artifice. Remember who you are. Jewelry, gold and burgundy statement pieces that complemented rather than competed. The dress fitting like it had been made for her body specifically. Burgundy velvet heels that gave her height and, more importantly, presence. Simone placed a gold clutch in Debbie's hands. Open it. Inside, her medical license, suspended but not revoked. A reminder, Simone said softly, of who you've always been. Finally, they stood Debbie in front of the only full-length mirror, the one on the bathroom door. Silence filled the small apartment. Debbie stared at her reflection. Tears threatened to ruin the makeup Simone's artist had spent an hour perfecting. What do you see? Simone asked. Debbie's voice came out barely above a whisper. I see her, Dr. Richardson. I see her again. Simone stood beside her, their reflections side by side. She never left. She was just waiting. At 5 o'clock, the black town car pulled up. Debbie took one last look at her apartment. At the bed, the kitchenette, the window overlooking the alley. Everything that represented 5 years of hiding. Ready? Simone asked. No, Debbie said honestly, but I'm going anyway. They drove through the city as it transformed from struggling neighborhoods to wealth. Debbie watched the world blur past, her hand trembling in her lap. Simone squeezed it. Remember, you're not going there for them. You're going for you. I know. The Venetian estate appeared like something from a dream. Or a nightmare. Lights, cars, people in clothes that cost small fortunes, cameras flashing. Debbie's hand trembled harder. Simone held it tighter. Breathe. You've got this. The car stopped at the entrance. Debbie whispered, Here we go. Pause. 2 seconds. The Gala was already in full bloom when the sun began its descent, painting the sky in shades of amber and rose. Bentleys, Rolls-Royces, and Maseratis lined the circular drive like a luxury car showroom. Women emerged from them in designer gowns, Valentino, Givenchy, Oscar de la Renta, each trying to outshine the last. Men in perfectly tailored tuxedos escorted them, their watches catching the light, their cufflinks worth more than most people's monthly rent. Champagne flowed from fountains. The orchestra played something classical and expensive sounding. In the main courtyard, Vanessa and Jason stood receiving guests like monarchs greeting subjects. Vanessa glowed in her $50,000 dress, basking in every compliment, every flash of photography, every envious glance from women who wished they were her. This was her kingdom, her night, her triumph. Then the black town car appeared. It moved slowly, deliberately, like it had all the time in the world. The valet approached, hand extended toward the door handle. The crowd near the entrance continued their conversations, their champagne toasts, their performance of importance. The valet opened the door. Time seemed to slow, stretching each moment into something cinematic. First, the shoes. Burgundy velvet heels touched the red carpet with the precision of a surgeon's first incision. Then, the dress, burgundy silk velvet that moved like liquid night, gold threading catching every camera flash, every ray of fading sunlight, transforming them into something almost celestial. The figure that emerged was poised, elegant, commanding in a way that didn't demand attention so much as quietly insist upon it. Natural curls styled into a regal updo, gold accessories catching the light like a crown, jewelry, gold and burgundy statement pieces that enhanced rather than overwhelmed, makeup flawless, highlighting rather than masking the face beneath. But most striking was the expression, calm, confident, fearless. The face of someone who knew exactly who she was and required no validation. The nearest guest turned. Conversation stopped mid-sentence, words dying in throats. Champagne glasses froze mid-air, suspended in the moment. Cameras pivoted away from Vanessa, photographers' instincts recognizing something more interesting than stage perfection. "Who is that?" someone whispered. More guests turned. The ripple effect spread through the crowd like a stone dropped in still water. Even the orchestra seemed to soften, as if the musicians themselves were looking over their shoulders. Vanessa felt the shift in attention like a physical thing, the way you feel a room's temperature drop. She turned from her conversation with a board member's wife, following the crowd's collective gaze. A woman in burgundy, elegant, regal, stunning in a way that had nothing to do with money and everything to do with presence, walking slowly toward the entrance with measured, confident steps. Vanessa's smile faltered. Something about the figure seemed familiar but impossible. The posture, the way she moved, something in the bone structure. "Who is—" Then recognition hit like a fist to the stomach. Her champagne glass slipped in her hand, nearly falling. She caught it at the last second, but champagne sloshed over her fingers. No, that's not—" Jason noticed his wife's reaction, the color draining from her face, the way her hand shook. He turned to look at what had captured her attention and the entire crowd's, the woman in burgundy. His eyes widened. Something about her seemed familiar in a way he couldn't place. The nagging sensation that he should know her, that she was someone important, because she was. He could see it in the way she carried herself. Debbie walked the red carpet like it was her operating theater, each step measured, confident, purposeful, head high, shoulders back, eyes forward. She wasn't seeking approval or permission. She was simply claiming the space that was rightfully hers. The crowd parted instinctively, making way the way people make way for royalty. Not because they were told to, but because something in them recognized they should. The whispers intensified, spreading like wildfire. "Is she a celebrity? She must be someone important. Look at that dress. The way she carries herself. I feel like I should know her." Debbie reached the main courtyard and stopped at the entrance. She surveyed the scene with the calm assessment of a surgeon reviewing a patient chart. Her eyes moved across the crowd, the decorations, the excess, until they found what they were looking for. Vanessa. Their eyes met across the distance, 20 feet of manicured lawn and imported flowers and crystalline air. Vanessa's face showed everything: shock, confusion, recognition, and then dawning horror as the impossible became undeniable. Debbie's face showed only calm, knowing, power. Kennedy grabbed Vanessa's arm. "Vanessa, what's wrong? You look like you've seen a ghost." Vanessa's voice came out hollow, barely recognizable. "I think I have." Isabel leaned in, following Vanessa's fixed stare. "Who is she?" Vanessa's lips moved, but at first no sound came out. Then, barely audible, That's the cleaning lady." Stunned silence from her friends. Tiffany shook her head slowly. "That can't be—" But even as she said it, doubt crept into her voice. Because the woman standing at the entrance to the courtyard, commanding attention from everyone present without saying a single word, didn't look like anyone's cleaning lady. She looked like a queen, and she was walking straight toward them. Pause. 2 seconds. Vanessa forced herself to move, each step toward Debbie feeling like walking through water. She tried to maintain the composure that had carried her through countless society events, but her hands trembled slightly at her sides. Her friends followed like uncertain shadows, and the guests, sensing drama the way sharks sense blood, pressed closer, conversations dying to murmurs. Vanessa stopped a few feet away from Debbie. She attempted her usual condescending smile, the one that had always made the cleaning lady look down, but it trembled at the edges, betraying her. "Debbie, you actually came." Debbie's voice was calm, steady as a heartbeat. "You invited me, Vanessa. Would have been rude not to show up." Vanessa's eyes scanned Debbie from head to toe, searching desperately for flaws, for something to ridicule. She found nothing. The dress was impeccable. The posture was regal. The woman before her bore no resemblance to the hunched figure who pushed a cleaning cart. "You look different." "Thank you." Debbie's slight smile was knowing. "You look exactly the same." The subtle dig landed like a slap. Several nearby guests suppressed smiles, recognizing the artistry of the insult. Vanessa's face flushed pink beneath her perfectly applied makeup. "Well, I'm glad you could make it. I see you found something appropriate to wear." "Yes." Debbie paused deliberately. "I've learned that what we wear says a lot about us." Another pause, letting the moment breathe. "But not as much as how we treat people." Audible reactions rippled through the crowd, a soft gasp here, a sharp intake of breath there. Vanessa's smile became strained, her jaw tight. Kennedy stepped in, trying to rescue her friend. "So, Debbie, what do you do?" The question was loaded, meant to expose, to embarrass. Debbie looked at Kennedy with perfect calm. "Currently, I clean office buildings." Gasps, whispers. Vanessa's friends exchanged triumphant looks. "See? Just as we thought." But Debbie continued, her voice never wavering. "Before that, I was a cardiovascular surgeon." Complete silence. The kind of silence that feels like the world has stopped spinning. Isabel's voice came out small, uncertain. Surgeon?" "Yes, Johns Hopkins Medical School, specialized in pediatric heart surgery." The silence deepened, became something almost sacred. Vanessa found her voice, but it came out strangled. That's not possible. You're just what, Vanessa?" The sharpness in Debbie's tone cut through the air like a scalpel, precise, controlled, deadly. "Just a cleaning lady? Just someone you thought you could humiliate?" The crowd pressed closer, sensing they were witnessing something larger than a party confrontation. Then a voice rang out from the crowd. "Deborah? Dr. Deborah Richardson?" An older gentleman pushed through the guests, his distinguished face showing recognition and shock in equal measure. Dr. Leonard Hayes, chief of surgery at Metropolitan General, moved toward Debbie like a man seeing a ghost made flesh. "My God, it is you! Deborah!" Debbie turned, and genuine emotion flickered across her carefully composed face. "Dr. Hayes, it's been a long time." "Long time?" "Deborah, we all thought you'd left the state, left medicine entirely. Where have you been?" "I've been right here, Dr. Hayes, just in a different capacity." Dr. Hayes looked confused, then his eyes traveled from Debbie's elegant dress to Vanessa's stricken face, then back to Debbie. Understanding dawned slowly, terribly. "Oh no, Deborah, have you been working as a cleaning lady?" "Yes, at Morales Tower." She turned, gesturing toward Jason, who stood frozen. "For Mr. Morales, for the past 2 years." Jason stepped forward, his face a mask of confusion. "Wait, you're the cleaning lady on the executive floor?" "Yes, Mr. Morales." Jason looked at Vanessa, then back at Debbie, pieces clicking together like a puzzle revealing something ugly. "And my wife invited you here because—" "Jason, I didn't know—" Vanessa started. "She knew exactly what she was doing, Mr. Morales." Debbie's voice was firm, leaving no room for lies. She produced the invitation from her clutch, holding it up like evidence. "This invitation was meant to humiliate me, to make me the joke of your celebration, to laugh at the poor cleaning lady who dared to show up at a society event." Gasps spread through the crowd. Phones emerged from purses and pockets, recording everything. "That's not true! I was just being nice!" Vanessa's protest was weak, transparent. Another voice cut through from the crowd. A woman in her 60s, elegant and dignified, stepped forward. "Dr. Richardson saved my husband's life." Her voice carried the weight of absolute truth. 7 years ago, emergency surgery, pro bono because we couldn't afford it. She spent 12 hours operating, refused to give up. Tears gathered in her eyes. "He's still alive because of you." "The Richardson Medical Initiative," another voice added. A younger man pushed forward. "You helped me get into medical school, sponsored my education. You treated my daughter when no one else would." More voices joined, people stepping forward, testifying to Debbie's work, her impact, her legacy. The crowd's energy shifted completely, turning from curiosity to something like reverence. Dr. Hayes spoke again, his voice emotional. "Deborah, the medical community wanted you back. We want you back. Your suspension can be lifted, your license reinstated, the hospital—" "I know." Debbie's composure cracked slightly, emotion bleeding through. I wasn't ready. I'd lost everything. My husband, my daughter, my career. It felt easier to disappear." Jason turned slowly to Vanessa, his voice cold and controlled, in a way that was more frightening than shouting. "Vanessa, you invited a woman who has saved countless lives, who devoted herself to helping people, to our party, to humiliate her?" Vanessa backed up, stumbling slightly in her expensive heels. "It was just supposed to be funny." "Funny?" Jason's anger became visible now, his jaw clenched. "There is nothing funny about this. Nothing." He turned to address the crowd. "Everyone, this is Dr. Deborah Richardson, a true hero. And she's been working in my building, and I was too blind and too absorbed in my own importance to see her." He turned back to Vanessa. "And you saw her, you knew her situation, and you used it for entertainment." "You're overreacting," Vanessa tried desperately. "I'm overreacting? I'm embarrassed, Vanessa. For the first time in our marriage, I'm genuinely embarrassed by you." Vanessa's face crumbled, her perfect facade, the makeup, the smile, the confidence, shattered like dropped crystal. She turned and ran, fleeing into the mansion, her $50,000 dress trailing behind her like a deflated dream. Her friends stood uncertain, then followed, leaving Debbie standing in the center of the courtyard. The crowd murmured, but the sound was different now. It wasn't mockery. It was awe. Pause. 2 seconds. Debbie stood in the center of the courtyard with all eyes on her. The weight of their attention felt different now, not crushing, but lifting. Jason approached slowly, his corporate confidence stripped away, leaving only a man confronting his own blindness. "Dr. Richardson, I don't know what to say. I apologize. For my wife, for myself, for not seeing you. Mr. Morales, I don't need your apology, but I do need to say something." She turned to address the crowd, her voice calm, but carrying the authority of someone who had operated on beating hearts, who had held life and death in her hands. "I didn't come here tonight for revenge. I didn't come to ruin anyone's celebration. I came because I needed to remember something." The courtyard held its breath. Even the orchestra had stopped playing. 5 years ago, I lost everything. My husband died. I lost custody of my daughter. I lost my medical career. I lost my home. I lost my identity. And worst of all, I lost myself. Emotion crept into her voice, but she controlled it the way she'd once controlled a scalpel, with precision and purpose. "I became invisible because it felt safe. I accepted being treated as less than because part of me believed I deserved it, that I was less than." Her eyes swept the crowd, meeting gazes, holding them. "But tonight, standing here, I remember what my mother taught me. Dignity isn't about your job. It's not about your bank account or your address or what you wear." She touched her heart, the gesture simple but profound. "It's about knowing your worth, even when others don't see it, especially when others don't see it." Dr. Hayes stood with tears streaming down his weathered face. "And it's about how you treat people, especially people you have power over, because that reveals who you really are." She looked toward the mansion where Vanessa had fled. "I don't hate Vanessa. I feel sorry for her. Because true poverty isn't about money. It's about character. and all her wealth can't buy what she lacks. Silence fell like snow. Then one person began clapping, then another, then the entire courtyard erupted, applause building like thunder, a standing ovation that shook the carefully manicured grounds. Dr. Hayes approached through the noise, his voice thick with emotion. "Deborah, I mean this. Come back. Metropolitan General wants you back. We'll fast-track your license reinstatement. We need surgeons like you." Others stepped forward, hospital board members, former colleagues, patients whose lives she'd touched, all offering support, resources, second chances. Jason spoke again. "Dr. Richardson, please, let me help. I can connect you with lawyers, advocates, whatever you need." Debbie felt overwhelmed by the sudden abundance after years of scarcity. I don't know what to say." "Say yes," Dr. Hayes urged. "Say you'll come back to medicine." Debbie looked around at all these faces, some familiar, many strangers, all offering respect she'd forgotten she deserved. "I'll think about it. But first, there's someone I need to see." Dr. Hayes understood immediately. "Your daughter?" Debbie nodded, tears finally falling freely. "I haven't seen Amara in 3 years. I need to be her mother again before I can be Dr. Richardson again. She needs her mother." Medicine can wait. Debbie moved toward the exit, and the crowd parted, not because she was beneath them, but because they recognized royalty. People touched her hand as she passed, thanking her, blessing her, asking forgiveness for not seeing her sooner. At the valet area, Simone emerged from where she'd been watching, her own tears reflecting the estate lights. They embraced without words, saying everything that mattered in the pressure of their arms. "I'm so proud of you," Simone whispered. "Thank you for everything, for reminding me. You reminded yourself. I just gave you a mirror." They walked to the car together. Before getting in, Debbie paused and looked back at the mansion, the lights, the luxury, the party that had seemed so important. It all looked suddenly small, like a dollhouse viewed from above. She looked down at herself, at the elegant dress that had been her armor. But she felt something deeper now. The dress hadn't made her powerful. It had simply reminded her of the power she'd always carried. The car door opened. She slid in, Simone beside her. As they drove away from the Venetian estate, Debbie looked at her reflection in the window. Not the broken woman who'd disappeared 5 years ago. Not the invisible cleaning lady who'd scrubbed floors while her soul atrophied. Just Deborah Richardson, survivor, fighter, mother, doctor, still here, still standing. "So, what now?" Simone asked. Debbie pulled out her phone, scrolling to a contact she hadn't called in 3 years. Her daughter's foster family. Her hand trembled, but this time with hope rather than fear. "Now, I call my daughter. I tell her I'm sorry. And I start fighting to get her back. And medicine? One step at a time. First I need to be whole, to be the woman Amara deserves as a mother." She paused, watching the city lights blur past. "And the woman I need to be for myself." The car drove into the night, carrying 2 friends away from one ending and toward a new beginning. Inside, Debbie felt something she hadn't felt in 5 years. Not happiness exactly, but something better. Hope, purpose, the bone-deep certainty that she was finally walking in the right direction. Pause. 2 seconds. Sometimes we lose everything to learn what truly matters. Sometimes the people who try to break us become the ones who wake us up. And sometimes the crown we're searching for is the one we've been wearing all along. We just need someone to remind us to lift our heads so we can feel its weight. Pause. 3 seconds. 1 year later, Dr. Deborah Richardson stood in an operating room at Metropolitan General, her hands steady, her purpose clear. In her office hung a photo, her and Amara outside a courthouse, custody restored, both of them crying and laughing at once. On her desk sat an invitation to the grand opening of the new Richardson Medical Initiative. And on her door, a nameplate read, "Dr. Deborah Richardson, MD, Chief of Cardiovascular Surgery." The crown had always been there. She'd just forgotten how to wear it. Pause. 3 seconds. If this story moved you, inspired you, or reminded you of your own worth, subscribe to our channel. We tell stories about real people overcoming impossible odds, about dignity, resilience, and the power of knowing who you are. Hit that subscribe button and join our community. Drop a comment. What did this story mean to you? And remember, you are not what happened to you. You are what you choose to become next.